you're seeing this because it's finally your turn to win. You clicked on this video for a reason, and that reason probably isn't what you think it is. You're here because something inside you is desperate, not inspired. Desperate. There's a part of you that's so exhausted from losing, from watching everyone else win while you stay stuck, that you'll click on anything promising relief. Anything that whispers, maybe this time. Maybe this is the answer. You've probably clicked on videos like this before, read the books, done the affirmations, felt the temporary surge of hope, only to wake up 3 months later in the exact same place, wondering why nothing changed. Again. But here's what you haven't considered. What if the reason you keep losing isn't bad luck? What if it's you? Not your effort. Not your worthiness. Something deeper. Something you've been running from your entire life. Something that's been sabotaging you from the inside while you've been blaming the outside. Carl Jung, one of the most penetrating minds in psychology, spent his life studying why people stay stuck, why intelligent, capable, hard-working people somehow never break through. What he discovered wasn't comforting. It wasn't a simple fix. It was a disturbing truth about human nature that most people refuse to accept. Your struggle isn't random. It's not cosmic injustice. It's a symptom of something you're refusing to see about yourself. And until you see it, really see it, you'll keep losing, no matter how hard you try. The painful pattern. You keep repeating. Let's be honest about what's really happening in your life, not the sanitized version you tell yourself, the real version. You've been on the sidelines for so long it's starting to feel permanent. You watch other people, people less talented, less dedicated, less deserving, get the exact things you want. The job, the relationship, the recognition, the life. And it looks effortless for them while you're grinding yourself into dust and getting nowhere. You've had your moments, those flashes where everything aligned and you thought, finally, this is it. This is my breakthrough. But then something happened. The opportunity fell through. You made a strange mistake at the worst possible moment. The door slammed shut just as you were stepping through it, and you're back where you started. Again, watching from the outside, waiting for your turn. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from this, not the exhaustion of hard work. You can handle that. It's the exhaustion of hope deferred, of almost there but not quite, of putting in maximum effort for minimum results, while everyone around you seems to stumble into success. You've started to wonder if there's something fundamentally wrong with you. And you're closer to the truth than you realize. Here's what's actually happening, what Jung saw in Patient After Patient. You've built an identity around struggle, not consciously, not deliberately, but somewhere along the way, the one who struggles became who you are. The one who tries hard but never quite makes it became your role. And roles, once established, are incredibly difficult to abandon, because your psyche knows how to play this role. It's practiced it for years. Struggle is familiar territory. Losing is predictable. The disappointment hurts, but it's a known hurt. You know how to process defeat. You've built coping mechanisms. You've constructed a whole life around this identity. But winning? Victory? Success? That's uncharted territory. And your mind, the same mind that claims it wants success desperately, interprets the unknown as a threat. So it pulls you back. Not because you're weak, because your system is designed to keep you in familiar territory, even if that territory is a burning house. Stop for a second. Think about the last time you were on the edge of a real breakthrough. What did you do? How did you sabotage it? Because you did. You know you did. The truth you've been avoiding. This is where most people close the video, because what comes next requires brutal honesty. And most people would rather stay comfortable in their familiar suffering than face uncomfortable truth. Your pain isn't random. It's not punishment from the universe. It's not bad luck. Your pain is a messenger. And you've been refusing to read the message because reading it means admitting something you don't want to admit about yourself. Jung discovered something that makes most people deeply uncomfortable. What you consciously ignore doesn't just disappear. It doesn't fade away politely. It returns as recurring patterns, as sabotaging behaviors, as persistent, grinding pain that won't stop until you finally pay attention. Your pain has been knocking on the door, first gently, then loudly, and lately with the force of a battering ram, demanding to be heard. And you've been doing everything possible to drown it out. More effort, more strategies, more positive thinking. Anything to avoid actually listening to what the pain is trying to tell you. What if I told you the pain is protecting you? What if your failures have been keeping you safe from something you're even more terrified of than losing? The part of you that's afraid to win. Here's what Jung understood that most people never grasp. You're not just afraid of failure. You're terrified of success. Not the fantasy version of success where everything is perfect and easy. The real version, where you're visible, where you're responsible, where you can't hide anymore behind excuses about bad timing or unfair circumstances or not getting the breaks. There's a part of you, a powerful part you've spent your entire life repressing, that knows exactly what you're capable of. That knows how brilliant you could be, how successful, how powerful. Jung called this the shadow, the parts of yourself you've rejected and hidden away because they were too threatening to your carefully constructed identity. Most people think the shadow only contains darkness, anger, aggression, selfishness, the traits we're ashamed of. But Jung discovered something most of his followers miss. The shadow also contains your light, your genius, your power, your capacity for greatness. And you've been hiding that light your entire life because letting it out means everything has to change. If you own your brilliance, you can't play small anymore. If you claim your power, you have to take responsibility. If you step into your potential, you lose your excuses. You lose the comfortable story about how you would have succeeded if only circumstances had been different. Some later Jungian thinkers called this the golden shadow, the disowned magnificence. And for people who've built their entire identity around struggle, this golden shadow is more terrifying than any darkness. Watch what happens when someone compliments you, when someone recognizes your talent or acknowledges your strength. You deflect, you minimize, you make a joke, you redirect attention away from yourself as quickly as possible. Why? Because being seen in your full power is unbearable. It's safer to stay small. Safer to keep losing. Because as long as you're losing, you don't have to face the terrifying responsibility of what you could become if you actually tried with your full capacity. You've been choosing familiar failure over unfamiliar success and calling it bad luck. The collapse you're experiencing right now. If you're watching this, there's a good chance your life is falling apart right now, or recently fell apart, or feels like it's about to. The job ended. The relationship imploded. The plan you'd been working on for years suddenly collapsed. Everything you built seems to be crumbling, and you can't understand why. You did everything right. You worked hard. You were patient. And still, it all fell apart. Here's what Jung would tell you: that collapse wasn't failure. It was preparation. There's an ancient alchemical process Jung studied extensively. To create gold, the philosopher's stone, the symbol of wholeness, alchemists had to start with base matter, raw, chaotic material, and the first stage of the process was called nigrido, blackening, decay, dissolution. Everything had to break down completely before it could be transformed into something precious. The old form had to die, so the essential elements could be released and reconfigured. Your life is in nigrido right now, and you're interpreting it as the end when it's actually the beginning. The identity you've been carrying, the one who struggles, the one who almost makes it, the one who keeps getting close but never breaks through. That identity is dissolving, and it feels like you're dissolving with it, like you're losing yourself, like everything you thought you knew is crumbling. Good. It needs to, 'cause that identity was never really you. It was a protective shell you built to keep yourself safe from the terrifying responsibility of your own power. And now that shell is cracking. The person you've been pretending to be can no longer contain the person you're becoming. This is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you actually are instead of who you were conditioned to be. And it's brutal. It requires the death of everything false, every protective mechanism, every comfortable lie, every excuse you've been using to avoid your own greatness. Most people turn back at this point. They can't tolerate the dissolution. They rebuild the old identity as quickly as possible and wonder why nothing ever changes. What you're actually afraid of, let me tell you what's really keeping you stuck. Not the surface fears, the deep ones, the ones you don't even admit to yourself. You're afraid that if you actually succeed, you'll discover that success doesn't fix you. That you'll get everything you've been chasing and still feel empty inside. That the problem was never your circumstances, it was always you. You're afraid that if you step into your power, people will expect things from you. That you'll have to maintain that level of performance, that you'll lose the sympathy and support that comes with being the underdog, that people will stop rooting for you and start resenting you. You're afraid that if you become who you're capable of becoming, you'll outgrow the people in your life, that your success will threaten them, that you'll end up alone at the top with no one who understands you anymore. You're afraid that if you really try, if you give it everything with no excuses and no safety nets, and you still fail, then you'll have to face the possibility that you weren't good enough. That it wasn't circumstances holding you back, it was your limitations. So you've been trying hard enough to feel like you're making effort, but not hard enough to actually succeed. You've been keeping one foot on the brake, while wondering why you're not moving forward. The shift that changes everything. Here's what has to happen for anything to change. Not what you want to hear. What actually has to happen. You have to turn around and face your golden shadow. You have to look directly at the parts of yourself you've been most afraid of. Your power, your brilliance, your capacity for greatness. And you have to stop running from them. This means acknowledging things you've spent your entire life deflecting. When someone says you're talented, instead of minimizing it, you say, "Thank you," and let yourself feel the truth of it. When you recognize your own intelligence or strength or creativity, instead of immediately listing your flaws to balance it out, you just let it stand. This will feel unbearably uncomfortable. It will feel arrogant, dangerous, wrong. That discomfort is your old identity screaming in protest because it knows it's about to die. You have to start acting from the identity of someone who has already won. Not fake it till you make it. Not pretending, but genuinely stepping into the psychological posture of a person who knows their worth and operates from that foundation. How would someone who had already integrated their golden shadow carry themselves today? What would they refuse to tolerate? What boundary would they finally set? What small action would they take, not from desperate striving, but from quiet certainty? You have to make different choices, not someday, today. And those choices will feel wrong because they don't match your current identity. You'll want to pull back, to return to familiar patterns, to choose the comfortable struggle over the uncomfortable growth. This is the moment when most people fail, when the rubber meets the road and they realize real change requires actual discomfort. They retreat. They go back to hoping and wishing and waiting for their turn. The signs you're not ready. Let me save you some time. Here are the signs that you're not actually ready to win yet, that you're still too attached to your identity as the struggler to actually break through. You're still telling the same victim story about your past, still using it as the explanation for why you can't succeed now. Still giving more energy to what happened to you than to what you're going to do about it. You're still surrounded by people who reinforce your struggle identity, people who bond with you over shared complaints, who support you when you're down, but get strangely uncomfortable when you start rising. And you're unwilling to outgrow those relationships. You're still waiting for external validation before you act. Still looking for permission. Still needing someone else to see your worth before you claim it yourself. Still believing that the right person or opportunity will come along and rescue you from having to rescue yourself. You're still more interested in understanding your problems than solving them. Still consuming content about transformation without actually transforming. Still analyzing and processing and exploring while your life stays exactly the same. If any of that landed, you're not ready. And you can stop watching now because nothing I say will change that. Only you deciding you're done with your own bullshit will change that. What winning actually means. Let's be clear about what we're talking about, because winning in this context doesn't mean what you think it means. It's not about money, not about status, not about proving yourself to the people who doubted you. That's ego-driven fantasy. That's the consolation prize. Real winning, what Jung called individuation, is becoming psychologically whole. It's integrating all the parts of yourself you've been rejecting. The shadow and the golden shadow. The darkness and the light. It's stepping into the full, complex, occasionally difficult reality of who you actually are instead of the sanitized, acceptable version you've been presenting. It's the moment you stop living the life you were conditioned to live and start living the life your soul has been screaming for. When your choices align with your actual values instead of your internalized shoulds. When you can look in the mirror and recognize yourself instead of seeing a stranger wearing your face. And here's what nobody tells you. That version of winning is lonely. It requires you to leave behind everyone who can't or won't grow with you. It means disappointing people who prefer you small and manageable. It means being misunderstood by people who are still asleep. Most people say they want to win, but they're not willing to pay that price. They want the trophy without the transformation. The result without the responsibility. The verdict. So here's where we are. You clicked on this video hoping for encouragement, for a message that your time is coming, for permission to keep believing that someday your turn will arrive. But that's not what this is. This is a mirror. And what you see in that mirror is someone who's been choosing their own imprisonment. Someone who's been sabotaging their own success because the identity of struggler felt safer than the identity of winner. Your pain hasn't been teaching you resilience, or building your character, or preparing you for greatness. Your pain has been the symptom of your refusal to integrate your golden shadow, of your terror of your own power, of your addiction to the comfortable role of underdog. And you can keep playing that role. You can close this video and go back to hoping and wishing and waiting for your turn. You can keep collecting evidence of how hard you try and how unfair everything is. You can stay in the familiar territory of noble struggle. Or you can do something different. You can turn around and face what you've been running from. You can acknowledge the brilliance you've been hiding. You can make different choices based on a different identity. You can tolerate the excruciating discomfort of actually winning instead of almost winning. But let's be honest, most of you won't. Most of you will watch this, feel momentarily uncomfortable, and then go right back to the patterns that have kept you stuck for years. You'll find reasons why this doesn't apply to you, why your situation is different, why you need to wait just a little longer before you're ready, why the timing isn't quite right, and in 5 years, you'll be in the exact same place, watching another video like this one, hoping for different information. When the information was never the problem, your willingness to act on it was. Your turn to win isn't coming from outside. It's not something the universe grants you when you've suffered enough or waited long enough. Your turn comes the moment you decide to stop identifying with struggle and start embodying victory. When you integrate your golden shadow instead of hiding from it. When you choose the unfamiliar discomfort of growth over the familiar comfort of stagnation. That moment could be right now, but probably won't be. Because most people would rather stay comfortable in their suffering than become uncomfortable in their power. The gate is open. It's been open the entire time. You're the one who's been standing outside it, waiting for permission to walk through. Waiting for someone to tell you you're ready. Waiting for conditions to be perfect. No one's coming to give you that permission. No conditions will ever be perfect. You either walk through now, imperfect, uncertain, terrified, or you stay outside forever, wondering why your turn never came. So what's it going to be? Are you actually ready to win? Or are you just ready to keep hoping that someday you might be? The answer to that question isn't in this video. It's in what you do in the next 5 minutes, the next hour, tomorrow. Most people already know their answer. And they're not going to like it.